Hey there and welcome back here. So in this movie we are gonna explore the Xcode. Now yes, I told you that we are gonna build our app, but eventually we are gonna do that. But before that I would like you to have a little bit of the interface tour because we are gonna spend a lot of time on the Xcode. And a lot of you might be seeing the Xcode for the very first time, so it's a good idea to have a first interface tour out there. And for all those people who are already familiar with the Xcode, feel free to just skip the movie or do a tour by your own, but there is no harm in watching this movie as well. So let's get started with that. First, you can see that I have this welcome screen on the Xcode. Now notice important thing that I have beta and some number being written. This is not gonna be your case because by the time you might be watching this course, this might be a complete full-fledged release. Now it shows us the three options. Get started with the playground, new Xcode project and existing project. Now depending on in which section of the course you are, we'll be exploring the first two options here. Now if we are in the Swift section or we want to quickly just test out a couple of logics, then we'll be playing around in the playground. It's a quick and easy way to just test out the codes and nothing else. And in fact, we'll be spending a lot of time in creating a new Xcode project. So this is the second button that you need to click on if you want to create any app for iPhone, app, Mac, stickers, the iMessage, or pretty much everything out there. So let's click on this project first of all because we'll take a tour for it. Now the very first thing that it's gonna ask is where you want to save the page and what you want to do. So if I click on the iOS, we can see we have a couple of categories here. The master detail application, page-based application, single view, tab, games, message, sticker pans, the metal library and all of that. Now in most of the cases we'll be just working on the iOS applications and not in the framework and library. We'll be spending a lot of time here and eventually with the time we'll be covering up all of these topics here. So for the right now we'll be moreover interested in the single view application, but feel free to just roam around in the applications like watchOS, the tvOS, the OS X and things like that. So make sure that you at least take a look on them. Now let's go ahead and click on the single view application and click on the next. Now here it's gonna ask what is gonna be your product name. So let's call it as test or tour. Tour would be a good name here. Now you can add your accounts of your teammates if you want to work with the collaboration, but that's gonna be a work that you're gonna be doing in the companies or in the corporate sector. That's a talk for later on. Right now you don't need to be worried about something. Now it says organization name. So you can put randomly any name or the name of your organization or your personal name. Now I'm gonna put a simple name of the company here. And then it says organizer identifier. Now this is gonna be important when you're gonna submit your app to the App Store because it says your identifier should be unique and usually it's your domain name in the reverse order. For example, you are Google, so your domain name would be com.google. Just like that, or dot something or like that. And usually for the demonstration cases you can just put it com.something. It's not gonna put an error out there, but it's a usual thing that you should be worried about when you're submitting your app. Okay, now it says language. Obviously it's gonna be Swift, no problem in that, but yes, we do have an option of Objective-C too, but Swift is gonna work for us. Now right now we are just designing for the universal app, but you can actually target specifically for iPhone or iPad, and we're gonna target universally at most of the time, but I'll tell you the difference between all of that later on. Now in this case we are not gonna use the code data. Later on there is gonna be a topic code data. We'll talk about that later on. Okay, now let's click on the next. And it says where you want to put it. I want to put it on the desktop in the iOS exercise files. So I'll be putting all of my files, all of the things in the iOS exercise file so that I can give it to you while you're learning out there. Okay, so we can see it's a pretty overwhelming screen, a little bit out there. Let's move on to the full screen mode. Here we go. So we can see it's a pretty overwhelming screen at the first. A lot of things are happening here, but don't be afraid. Most of them are not gonna be touched anytime soon. So let me have a tour here. So first of all, notice in the top right bar, and in case yours is not visible a little bit, make sure that all of these are turned as a blue. So this one is turned blue, this one is blue, but this is not. So let me click on this and bring the pane. So these are the toggle buttons. You can toggle left and right screens out based on that. So in case you want more focused area to write the code, you can use these, and you will find them quite a lot of places. Like at the bottom also, you can see there is this icon which actually toggles the interface out there. So you'll find them quite a lot out there. Okay. So once you're familiar with these toggle things, you can actually make your screen just like me, just like mine is having here. And most of the time you'll be spending your time in these files at the right in the left hand side, which is app delegate, view controller, main storyboard, and launch screen as well. These are going to be major topics on which we'll be focusing in the entire code. So let's click on the main storyboard. And it's gonna take a little bit of the moment to switch on the screen at the first go, because it's not easy for the Xcode. It's in the beta release, so it sometimes does take a little bit of the time. Notice now it has started to work on. Now it's awake and it's trying to just go there. Now this is completely normal, and in the entire course you might feel that there is an internal error occurred, editing functionality may be limited. Now these are the kinds of bugs which are fixed in the beta release. Of course these are not gonna bother us anytime soon in the course. Okay, let me click on this button here as well to move this view control scene. We'll talk about that later on. Right now you can see that we have got a view controller which looks pretty good. And on the right hand side at the bottom pane, we can see we have a view controller. If you'll scroll down, you'll see that we have a button, text fields, sliders, and quite a lot of things. You can actually drag and drop them, which we'll see later on in the screen. And there are a couple of identity entities. We can see that the inspectors are there, the attribute inspector, which will be spending a lot of time, and there are couples of others as well. Now interestingly, this looks like an iPhone. Now if you might have seen the previous version of the Xcode, it used to look like a square, which was a generic design, but now they have again switched to the particular devices. Like if I click on this guy, we can see we have the orientation ability to switch the orientation from the landscape to the portrait mode. And we can even switch on the devices as well. Now at the right, we can see left again. At the top left, we can see it says iPhone SE, means I'm designing an app for an SE again here. But I can switch my devices again for the different width. Like we can switch on to the 6S Plus or the 6S or the SE or the smaller one, the 4S, or big ones like the iPad Pro or these like that. But this switching is only getting switched onto the screen area that we have here. For example, I'm 6S here, but this says SE. Now why it is different? Now this is the orientation where your actually diagram sort of things looks like, but at the top it is actually the simulator which is gonna run out here. So if I run this app and if I click on just the run button, it's gonna take a little bit of the time, and it's gonna just launch a simulator which is going to be exactly like an iPhone, and you can test your apps without having an iPhone. That's a great advantage, because you cannot actually have all the screens out with your hand. Like you cannot buy iPhone 6s, 4s, iPad Pros, and pretty much everything. So that's why the iOS people gives you like that. Let me just move on from the full screen so that I can show you the simulator. This is how the simulator looks like. And all of our apps are gonna be running on this. We can see that it's pretty large for my small screen out there, but we can work out with that. I'll show you later on the simulator options. Like we have a hardware toggle keyboard options and the home screens. Some of the options for the visualization, like I want to visualize it a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. So we do have that options, shake gestures and rotate left, right, and pretty much everything. So I'm gonna keep this aside for a moment because it's gonna load up, it's gonna boot up just like your iPhone. So let me keep it aside and talk a little bit more about this interface. So you'll see this quite a lot. And one more thing, whenever I'll be changing my screen or anything, I'll be just discussing with you, because it's easy to get lost in this particular long and beautiful IDE out there. So many times I'll be switching, like I'll click on this button which looks like a Venn diagram to me, and it's gonna switch its mode just like that. So you might be wondering how this is being made and everything. So I'll tell you on the go that how the things are gonna be switching like that. And momentarily I'll be dragging and dropping quite a lot. So go ahead and get a good mouse or a trackpad so that you can drag things from here to on this here. And later on it's gonna be a really good thing out there on working with the latest. Now, one more thing I would like to give it to you to boost your moral up. Now, working in the Xcode 8 is much more simpler as compared to the iOS 8. Things are much simpler as compared to the previous version. Now, with the little knowledge of the Swift, you can actually launch your app pretty easily. Okay, so we have been talking quite a lot about just for the interface. Now, in the next movie, we'll be designing our app. Let me close this guy. And we'll be designing our own app. Now, of course, we will not talk about the technicality details, how the programming works and everything. But again, without that also, you'll be able to have your very first app. And it's not gonna be a simple Hello World app. It will do something. Okay, let's move on and create our first app.